There's a few empty chairs at the front. Καλησπέρα και καλώς ορίσατε. Καλησπέρα και καλώς ορίσατε. Good evening and welcome to the Greek Centre. I also welcome those joining us from far away through the various streaming services. My name is Spyros Louis and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Greek Orthodox community of Melbourne and Victoria. I would like to commence by acknowledging that the Kulin nations are the traditional custodians of the land upon which we gather tonight. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We are honoured to have with us tonight the eminent archaeologist and director of the National Archaeological Museum of Greece, Dr. Anna Vasiliki Karapanagiotou. Dr. Karapanagiotou studied history, archaeology and art history in both Athens and Munich. Her doctoral thesis is titled The Image of the Woman in Athens of the Late Hellenistic and Imperial Years, Evidence of Grave Reliefs. Dr. Karapanagioutou's field excavations and directorship of archaeological sites includes locations in both Greece and southern Italy. She has taught the subjects of classical archaeology and cultural heritage at the University of the Peloponnese. Her academic writing is prolific and includes monographs as well as very many articles. Projects that Dr. Karapanagiotou has been involved in and for which she has received commendations from the European Museum Forum include the enhancement of the archaeological sites of Mantinia and Orchomenos and the re-exhibition of the Archaeological Museum in Pylos. She is currently a member of the Council of Museums and the Central Archaeological Council in the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and Sports. As the director of the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, Dr. Karapanagiotou is involved in very many important international collaborations. One such collaboration is the present exhibition at the Melbourne Museum titled Open Horizons, Ancient Greek Journeys and Connections. This exhibition features significant and exquisite items from Greek antiquity in the collection of the National Archaeological Museum. This important exhibition has come to fruition under the auspices of Museums Victoria and the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and Sports. The exhibition examines cultural influences between the ancient Greek people and surrounding populations through travel. The title of Dr. Karapanagioutou's lecture tonight is Cultural Memory, Repatriation of Greek Cultural Property and the Role of the Greek National Archaeological Museum. The English Romanticist poet penned those captivating words, "We are all Greeks. Our laws, our literature, our religion, our arts have their root in Greece." The poet's words became a Philhellene slogan and a rallying call to the West to support the Greek War of Independence against Ottoman rules. These words of allegiance asserted that ancient Greek culture was the cornerstone of Western civilization and was a long-held belief of Western scholars and antiquarians. However, in the context of the repatriation of Greek antiquities to their homeland, the words, "we are all Greeks," suggest the West also has a claim to these artefacts. Initiatives such as the Open Horizons exhibition are important for maintaining connections with the Greek diaspora and reflect the commitment of the Greek ministry to the conservation and the promulgation of the country's cultural heritage. However, Greece is acting in an international environment which is not always conducive to this aim. Dr. Karapanagiotou is here tonight to discuss the success of this campaign to date by the Archaeological Museum. So without further ado, I ask that you put your hands together and warmly welcome our speaker to the podium.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για τα ωραία λόγια. Εύχομαι σε όλους Χριστός Ανέστη, χρόνια πολλά, με υγεία, χαρά, ευτυχία και πάνω απ' όλα ανοιχτούς ορίζοντες. So this is the first Greek salute from me. I shall speak in English, and of course I would like to be excused if my pronunciation or accent is not so accurate. So, about a month ago, I've got a message from Linda Sproul giving me the invitation of the Greek Center and to deliver a lecture on this topic, cultural memory, and the so-called repatriation items and topics. I was very, very happy to hear about that, and please believe me, I didn't have no second thought. During the time I thought about organizing my topic, I first thought about this legendary figure, this legendary archaeologist, internationally known, Indiana Jones. And at the end of the third film of this series, Indiana Jones addresses to his students and says, archaeology is the search for fact. No, not truth. If it's truth that you are interested in, the philosophy class is down the hall. Forget any ideas about lost cities, exotic travel, and digging up the world. We do not follow maps to treasure, and X never ever marks the spot. 70% of all archaeology is done in the library. Research, reading, we cannot afford to take mythology at face value. So, this is the words of Indiana Jones commenting on the crucial role of archaeologists in these important issues of repatriating cultural heritage, and I will comment on this later on. So, but first of all, a few words on the meaning of the repatriation of cultural goods, because this word has several meanings, at least in the English dictionary, as I've gone through. What is the meaning? So, repatriation is the return of cultural property, often referring to ancient or looted art, to their country of origin or former owners. The disputed cultural property items are physical artifacts of a group or society that were taken by another group, usually in an act of looting, whether in the context of imperialism, colonialism, or war. The contested objects vary widely and include sculptures, paintings, monuments, objects such as tools or weapons for purposes of anthropological study and human remains. The source is from Wikipedia, and I find it truly appropriate for on our occasion. So let me give you an example of repatriation. a famous example around the world. These are the horses of Saint Mark, which were looted by Venice in the sack of Constantinople in 1204, then looted by Napoleonic forces from Venice in 1797, but repatriated to Italy in 1815. So this returning home, it has a very, very long history. And this is the most important debate nowadays between specialists and among all, between cultural organizations. Whose culture? To whom does culture and cultural goods belong? This is an ongoing debate about the housing of cultural artifacts in museums miles away from their place of origin. So there is a part on this debate of experts that say important antiquities should be treated as the common property of mankind, and so we don't. We are not interested from where these antiquities come and the provenience, and to repatriate them. On the other side, this is the references from the New York Times. On the other side, an opposite view, cultural artifacts belong in their country of origin to be viewed and appreciated in the context in which they were made. So this is an ongoing debate still today. As I have already told you, we have also ancient origins of debate about cultural property. What do we have here? Here you see an ancient vase of about 360 BC, and with two figures depicting the so-called stele of the Palladion. This is on the one hand, one hand is Odysseus, on the other Diomedes, two Greek heroes of the Trojan War. That stele Palladion, this little figurine here, which was the cult statue of Troia. And they managed to steal it in order Troia to be captured. But then, as we all know, there was an Odyssea for most of the Greek heroes going back home, and this, let's say, was a revenge of this sacrilegious problem they caused. What about looting during Napoleon's empire? I've chosen this slide because this was the hugest looting, artifacts looting of the recent times, modern times. The scale of plundering during Napoleon's French Empire was unprecedented in modern history, with the only comparable looting exhibitions taking place in ancient Roman history. the French revolutionaries justified this large-scale and systematic looting of Italy in 1796 by viewing themselves as the political successors of Rome. So there was a political, let's say, justification of this looting. We are the successors of the great Roman Empire, and we can take the artifacts. And so I don't know if someone from here has already seen this book or read this book. It is called The Medici Conspiracy. It is written by a journalist and investigator on looting cultural artifacts. The story, this is a true story, and has to do with looting of ancient Italian artifacts based on interviews and investigations by this journalist Peter Watson. And the story begins, as all stories do, in good crime thrillers. It is like a crime thriller, please believe me, with a botched robbery and a police chase. The Medici Conspiracy exposes the latest version of one of the oldest cons in the world: theft, smuggling, and duplicitous stealing, all in the name of art. With the definitive revelation of the chain of corruptions, the world of antiquities stealing and museums collections will never be the same again. What about the protection? International laws, international right concerning the cultural protection. We have a convention, a very important convention dated in 1970 by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, for the fight against the illicit trafficking of cultural property. The return and restitution of cultural property is central to this convention, and its duty is not only to remember, but to fundamentally safeguard the identity of peoples and promote peaceful societies whereby the spirit of solidarity will be strengthened. Thus, the 1970 Convention by UNESCO is fully in line with the sustainable development goals defined in the United Nations 2030 Agenda. You can see more about all these things under this link by UNESCO. And let's go now to Greece. From ancient times to modern times, and from the rest of the world to Greece. Which are the basic principles of Greek policy regarding the return of cultural property? Mutual benefit, stability, continuity, and persistence to the successful achievements of our goals. Careful and detailed legal and archaeological documentation. Reduce of the demand for antiquities among marketplaces worldwide. restoration of the integrity of the monument, as well the public order and justice, and building a network of international cooperation combating the illicit trade of cultural goods. So here I wanted to show you this very recent photo. It is okay with the sound? Okay, thank you. So this photo dated on March the 1st from, I think it is in Washington, D.C. or New York, with the team of the Greek-American team of returning artifacts, looted artifacts, ancient Greek artifacts. You see a sample here, and the official ceremony. In the center, our Minister of Culture, Dr. Lina Mendoni, who will be from tomorrow on here in Melbourne with us, and the rest are the general judge, American judge. I can't right now see his name, general, and on the other side, in between, are two of my colleagues, Mrs. Papageorgiou and Dr. Vlahogianni, members of the Directorate for the for documentation and protection of cultural heritage, a department of the headquarters of the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and Sports, who are this directorate is responsible for the administrative and scientific work of repatriation of cultural artifacts to Greece. So let's go again from where we have started. How important is the role of an archaeologist in holding such cases? We have only detectives, policemen and policewomen, investigators, journalists, judges? No. The crucial role, not only, the crucial role belongs to the archaeologist. And what is their goal? The verification of the authenticity of an object in question, the identification of the object, the discovery of the relevant proofs needed for its successful claim, and the reconstruction of the full and true provenance of the object, which will lead to additionally prove its illicit origin. And this is the work, one of the major works of the scientific staff of the National Archaeological Museum, Greece. So, do you know this building? Have you ever visited it? This is the National Archaeological Museum, Greece, just in the center of Athens. And I have the honor to be the director of this museum and of its staff, a very selected and very good staff. So just a few words to introduce our museum for those who have not yet gone there. The largest archaeological museum in Greece and one of the most important museums in the world devoted to ancient Greek art, authentic ancient Greek items, founded at the end of the 19th century to house and protect antiquities from all over Greece. We are not a local museum. We are the National Archaeological Museum of Greece, thus displaying their historical, cultural, and artistic value. So, more than 11,000 exhibits beyond those in the storerooms offer the visitor a panorama of ancient Greek culture from the beginning of prehistory, let's say from 6000 BC, to the late antiquity, that is about 400 AD. And we have 5 major permanent collections. And you can also visit our page, our internet page, official page, to see more about us, both in Greek and English. And please follow us at the social media, on the social media. So, let me now give you some short selection of short stories on the role of the National Archaeological Museum for the repatriation of cultural goods. This is just a small selection and what I really enjoy to tell, but there are many more. Let's start the returning home story by the National Archaeological Museum. The kidnapping of Christos, back to 1930s. So this is Christos, but I will deal with him later on because before I have a more interesting story to tell. So, a marble statue of great size was found in illicit excavation by local looters somewhere in Attica, in Messoia, somewhere there. Most probably, we don't know exactly, in 1932. In order for the statue to be transported more easily, it was cut to pieces. And it was rumored to have been transported near the port of Oropos. Oropos is here in northern Attica, or Lavrion here. Eloise is here, and Athens here, and where it was buried in the sand, always before shipping, buried in the sand. This is a rule. And from there, looted on a sailboat and then on a ship and arrived to France in 1932. So, who is the figure here? This is Alexandros Philadelpheus, an eminent scholar of his time, a philosopher, archaeologist, doctor archaeologist, and many, many other sectors who, upon a time, at that time, he was the director of the National Archaeological Museum. And through his contribution and documentation, In 1936, Greek police located the statue in Paris, and after a long legal dispute of Greek Archaeological Service, police and attorneys, it returned to Greece in 1937 with Orient Express, the famous Orient Express. So you can see here from the announcement of the repatriation of the statue in Illustrated London News 1937. These all are in our archives. National Archaeological Museum has a large historical, among others, archive. And here is Christos, as it is exhibited today in our museum. This is a naked youth, Kouros, in modern Greek Palikari, one of the most imposing of its kind, made of Parian marble, and it was a funerary statue during ancient times. Erected on the grave of Christos, who fell in battle according to the epigram carved on the front of its pedestal here. And this is the most important, the inventory number of the museum, dated to 530 BC. One of the highlights of our museum. So, a second story. A land strewn with antiquities. Locals join forces with archaeologists at Idonia in Corinthia. Does anyone here originate or she originate from Peloponnese, from Corinthia, Corinth? Ah, great, great. So listen to your local archaeological history. This is the first, let's say, organized successful attempt of a Greek state to return back a treasure. So where are Idonia? Here, somewhere here is Athens, and this is Corinthia. This is my is Tripoli, where I was born. We are in the Peloponnese, Corinthia, and Idonia is a little village near ancient Nemea, as you see here on the map. So, the history of this looted cemetery and the adventure of the Idonia treasure. In November 1976, a 15th century BC cemetery, as we say Mycenaean, was discovered not far from the village of Idonia by local looters. There were reports of gun battle between rival gangs of looters. Looted objects were rumored to have been smuggled out of Greece, hidden in watermelons. These all were rumors, still facts, as I believe. So these two photos show the systematic excavation by the Greek Archaeological Service after the looting, and these are called rescue excavations, in order to rescue whatever the looters, in this case, left behind. And this is very, very crucial for the documentation. On April 4th, so the next step of our story. In 1993, the New York Times, you see here, published an article about a rare collection of Mycenaean jewelry that was due to be out up for auction in Manhattan by art dealer Michael Ward with a starting price of $1.5 million, starting point. And so, the same period, the very prominent American archaeologist and former director of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens, and a friend of mine, James Wright, who had worked at Nemea, informed the Greek Archaeological Service, because by that time we didn't have internet, of his suspicion that the material might have been looted from Idonia. And after obtaining a copy of the catalog, so demanded by the Greek Ministry of Culture, convened a committee of experts to investigate the possible origin of the material. The committee concluded that because of close stylistic and technical affinities between objects excavated legitimately at Idonia and those offered for sale in New York, the New York material must have been looted from Idonia. And so here in 1996, we have the official ceremony at last for the return of the Idonia treasure to Greece at the National Archaeological Museum. So you see here the Foreign Minister of Culture, Stavros Benos, the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dora Bakoyanni, and here in between, Dr. Katerina Dimakopoulou, head of the Department of Prehistoric Antiquities in our museum, who has offered a lot on documenting these two items, the Idonia treasure and the remains from the excavations by the rescue excavation by the Archaeological Service. And you can just only have a look of this treasure, the special edition, two wonderful gold signet rings. You see here, much gold. And today, this treasure is exhibited at the Nemea Museum, Archaeological Museum. So, another big story, very in fashion during the past 2 years. The war over plunder. Who owns art stolen in war? So there is a movement on scientific research tracks, new research tracks, ancient artifacts looted by the Nazis. Scholars are increasingly focusing attention on this item. Just Google a little bit and you see, either by journalists or scholars or historians, the basic matter is the looting of artifacts of all kinds, of all periods by the Nazis during World War II. Let's come back to this, to the National Archaeological Museum. I don't know if you already recognize these two pictures, because before the German invasion, Greek museums, and above all the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, protected, prepared ancient artifacts to be protected and hidden, such as this marble grouping of Aphrodite, Pan, and Eros, here on our exhibition today, and here covered with plaster for protection. And this is another historical photo of the period 1940-41 with conservators, student archaeologists, and workers preparing the artifacts to be hidden before the Germans' invasions to Athens. Among them, Spyros Louis, a young student and an academic, a famous Greek archaeologist. So, during this period, we have an unknown German excavation in the years of the occupation. Where this excavation, excuse me? The excavation took place in Thessaly. Here comes someone from Larissa, Volos, or so on. Central Greece, and where this is the excavating Vasiliki Manula in 1941. In 1941, the German professor of prehistory at the University of Berlin, an officer of the German army, Hans Reinhardt, conducted excavations at Vasiliki Manula near Velestino, the town city of Rigas Velestinlis. The finds and excavation archive were transported in 1942 to Germany and were progressively returned in 1946, in 1949, and in 2014 to Greece. You see original photos by the excavation, of the excavation. And some of the findings and the archives, all these are stored right now at the National Archaeological Museum, at our museum. This was a prehistoric, as we say, excavation of a settlement around 6 to 3000 BC, and here was the most, here is a reconstruction of the most prominent house that has been excavated, perhaps a megaron, an official building of that time of 3000 BC. And some photos of this wonderfully painted and glazed pottery of Neolithic period, masterpieces of their kind. And the story continues after the reunification of Germany in 1990. All these antiquities, which were found in East Germany, were transported to Pfahlbaum Museum, southwestern Germany. And in 2010, this German museum informed Greece about their intention, their willingness to return these finds back to the country of origin, Greece. They wanted to donate, to return them back. And also Austrian, at the same time, Austrian, Greek, and German archaeologists worked together and made the documentation of all this. And the repatriation was at last accomplished on July 2014. This is the Greek-German cooperation, the repatriation ceremony at the German Museum. The repatriated antiquities conserved by our team at the National Archaeological Museum when they arrived back home. And the repatriation, some photos of the repatriation ceremony at Athens. And these are 30,000 artifacts stored in the storerooms of the National Archaeological Museum, waiting for their permanent exhibition someday in the future. And this is a very truly emotional story. I do not know if you have already visited the Open Horizon excavations at the Melbourne Museum. You can see there for the first time in Australia and outside the National Archaeological Museum, this exquisite marble Cycladic figurine. Victory of legitimacy and a promising European future. The then General Director of our headquarters, so there was a really ongoing dispute. This is another case at the beginning between the Karlsruhe Museum and the Greek headquarters, the headquarters of the Hellenic Ministry of Culture. Let's say a dispute, a very long dialogue between these two institutions in order this to come back, because so the German scientists said, okay, do you know its provenience? Is it for sure coming from Greece? From where do you know that? So this is a standing female idol figurine with folded arms, naturalistic stylistic elements, manufactured in the Cyclades at about 2000 BC and acquired by the Karlsruhe Museum in 1975. And the second one, this frying pan, another of these two Cycladic objects from that museum. So our touristic, one of the most touristic destinations in Greece, Cyclades. I think you already know about that. And here is the area from where our figurine, this most probably from Naxos coming. So I don't want to read in details the archaeological documentation for this Cycladic figurine, but these are the scientific arguments according which the Karlsruhe, based on this, the Karlsruhe Museum at last accepted to give back this figurine, beyond any doubt. Most of all, Lord Colin Renfrew. Lord Colin Renfrew, a professor of archaeology, an expert of the Cycladic culture, emphasizes the fact that this kind of size of idols are created exclusively within the geographical boundaries of the Cyclades. So beyond any doubt, the figurine came out from Cyclades, from Greece, from our islands. And the repatriation, you see, to Greece, to the National Archaeological Museum, in the restoration laboratories. Here are some of my colleagues to inspect the figurine. This was the temporary exhibition of these two Cycladic objects and now they are on a permanent basis in the National Archaeological Museum, but the figurine right now is hosted at Melbourne Museum for 3 months, and do not miss this exhibition, this creative collaboration we had with Museums of Victoria. The bone of contention, National Archaeological Museum versus Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki. This is another story. A little civil war, because we have also that. So this is a masterpiece of ancient Greek metallurgy. This is a bronze crater, but we say for this later on. In 2008, Manhattan-based antiquities collector Shelby White, the famous Shelby White, returned 2 works from her private collection to Greece in July. The Greek Ministry of Culture said this had been illegally excavated and smuggled abroad. The objects are a marble relief fragment at the National Archaeological Museum and a bronze calyx crater, both from the 4th century BC. And the Art News says in 2008, they will be displayed at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens before being transferred to museums near them find sites. And from that point, the civil war starts, a small one. So, this bronze calyx crater, 71 centimeters high, on its separately cast 2-part stand, is unique in this here overlaid silver garland of grapevine leaves that encircles its walls. It is dated to circa 370 BC, and the full documentation is given by Beryl Bar-Sharar in an article of 2015, and this scholar documents that perhaps this crater, according to her opinion, is of Athenian workmanship. So Athenian artist made it. Oh, excuse me. So then the question, where will this crater be exhibited? was a dispute between the Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki, where all these supposedly found in tombs in Macedonia, rich in this collection in Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki, and on the other ground, the National Archaeological Museum. At the end, the National Archaeological Museum managed to keep on exhibition this metal object on an interesting further thoughts, argument that the National Archaeological Museum does not have so many antiquities from northern Greece, does not house so many antiquities. Instead of the National Archaeological, in the Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki, which it's all the Macedonian. And so now you can see it at the permanent collection of metallurgy. A little before the end, I would like to show you Spyros Louis, and the title of this section is Ancient Trophy Given to First Marathon Winner Return to Greece. This is Spyros Louis, the first marathon winner, Greek winner in Athens, the first Olympic Games in Athens in 1896 in modern times. A modern hero. He is dressed to his like a fustanelas, with his fustanella. And Spyros Louis was given an ancient cup after his victory. Yes, by the organizers of the Olympic Games. This cup there. And this ancient cup smuggled out of Greece by Hermann Goering. Decades after it was awarded to the winner of the first modern Olympic marathon, has been returned to Athens. It disappeared, this ancient cup. This is a 6th century BC skyphos, a small vase for drinking, skyphos, or 200 wine chalice, went on public display at the country's leading archaeological museum yesterday following its return by a German university. Source is the Times of United Kingdom. It was missing for decades before Greek culture ministry experts led by the archaeologist Yorgos Kavadias, traced it to the University of Munich in 2014, and this is, I pay a tribute to my colleagues. Dr. Yorgos Kavadias is the head of the vase collection department. He's not with us today. I tried to find a photo of him, but he doesn't want to have any photo. I couldn't find one. So, and we go together this summer to Münster Museum to give, because they have donated, they have given with all generosity the cup. They didn't know that. Yorgos documented that this is Spyros Louis' cup. And so we are going to give a long-term loan of our artifacts as a reward, as a gift to that museum, the University Museum of Minster. So this is a selection of these short stories of the role of the National Archaeological Museum to the repatriation of ancient Greek artifacts. I hope you have a little bit enjoyed all that, and I was not so tiring for you. But let me, before I close, to express through Giorgos Seferis what I personally feel, to express what I personally feel about all this movement. I quote in Greece, you can follow in English. Ξύπνησα με το μαρμάρινο τούτο κεφάλι στα χέρια, που μου εξαντλεί τους αγκώνες και δεν ξέρω πού να τα κουμπίσω. Έπεφτε στο όνειρο καθώς έβγαινα από το όνειρο. Έτσι ενώθηκε η ζωή μας και θα είναι πολύ δύσκολο να ξαναχωρήσει. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Karapanagiotou, for such an informative lecture and an insight into the reverence with which people work towards the repatriation of cultural property that's undertaken. Two things that stuck out was important to repatriation was the work that archaeologists do in identifying works that actually proves provenance in order for legitimate claims to be made later once they're identified. But also the requirement of an increase in consciousness from those who hold these artifacts to give them back.
Or I can be here, whatever you want.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So your point that, well, the examples, the Shelby White story and the Olympic trophy that was given to Spyros Louis indicates that increased consciousness about where these items belong is probably the key, the shortest route in getting artifacts back to their homeland.
Yes,
So,
very right.
yeah.
Thank you for commenting on that. Yes, you have totally understood.
Yeah. Personally, I was shaken by the term rescue excavations because it actually, I hadn't heard it before, and it actually brought home the violation that is required to loot these sites, a violation not just of the items but of the landscape, and that really unsettled me somewhat. But I also want to thank you for priming me for my visit to the Open Horizons exhibition. I'm personally looking forward to seeing, I've looked at the catalogue quickly, and I'm looking forward to seeing the marble grave stele of Alexandra, who's dressed as a goddess.
As a goddess, the Isis goddess.
Yes, so if I see you over the next few days, I'll be asking you to comment on the cross-cultural influences in this carving. But for now, I'd like to invite Varvara Ioannou to greet you up here. So if you would like to come up here now. So Varvara is a member of the Community Advisory Group to the Melbourne Museum, and she just would like to give our guest a few words of gratitude.
Give this woman a round of applause. What a wonderful women and for all of us Greeks.
Thank you very much. I'm deeply touched.
Well, on behalf of everyone here tonight and those who joined us from all around the world, I would like to express our congratulations and gratitude to you for your most inspiring and outstanding presentation. Your knowledge and passion for this area are second to none. And you have presented this lecture in such an interesting way, so clearly and with such diction, that all of us here tonight will remember for as long as we will live. I don't think anybody will forget the looting, the role of the archaeologist, what the National Archaeological Museum is doing, and what repatriation means. I love the way that you presented the pros and the cons of the international law and what the Greek law says. And congratulations for all your efforts in bringing all this stolen, looted to Greece. Now, on a personal note, I feel very privileged to have been participated on the advisory committee, community advisory committee, to bring the Open Horizons to Australia. I have experienced the passion, the hard work of all the staff, but also the volunteers. Yes, Linda, you'll get on stage in a minute. Yes. So it's been a real privilege and a highlight in my life. Judging from your Ph.D, Dr. Anna, your thesis, and I hope to have you back to talk about that another time, and you're interested in women, I would like to present you with a copy of my recently published book, Her Voice, Greek Women and Their Friends, which is a snapshot of our history of the women that were born in the second half of the 20th century, and for you to have a look at. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much. I'm a specialist on,
Thank you so much.
on women's studies, and this is my favorite theme. Thank you theme and topic, and therefore I selected Alexandra. This Alexandra monument you referred to. This is based on my dissertation.
Fantastic.
Before we call on our incredible president extraordinaire of the Greek community, Bill Papasteriadis, I'd like to call to the podium the other director of the Melbourne Museum, Linda Sproul. Please come to the stage. Linda has worked, and her staff have worked so hard and so tirelessly, 24/7, to bring this exhibition, to Melbourne. And it's been a real highlight and a pleasure to have them here tonight. So there's another book for you. Sorry, do you want to?
That was 3 steps.
One big
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bill, just before I hand over to you, this woman is amazing because she met me in a Zoom meeting in July last year. So 3 Zoom meetings and 2,500 emails.
from the very beginning, without any second thoughts.
Yeah.
Although we didn't know each other.
Yeah. So amazing. So
Amazing.
I am indebted to you very
To you
deeply,
too.
and everyone else. Thank you. No, that I just wanted to let you know that professionalism and trust and passion and commitment from both of our teams has been amazing, and then our connection with you as a community, and thank you. Over to you.
And finally, Bill Papastagiadis, our president, would like whichever members of the board are present to come forward so we can show appreciation. We have.
Shall I stay here?
Yes, we need you in the middle. We need to give it to you. So if the board could come up. Linda, do you want to pop up as well? And so too, I've given you on the committee. All of the board could come up. Well, I get this.
Very nice.
It's made today. So maybe in 2,000 years it'll have some value. But it certainly has a lot of meaning to us. So if we can get everyone up. Helene, Gina, everyone up. Guys, come in. We'll all squeeze in together. Linda, just come.
I'm here. This is another amazing.
Jim, can we see you?
Where to
Hold that. Hello, let's hold this for now.
Yes.
Beautiful.
This.
Yes. Can I get you in? One? Yeah, that's it. We need a little bit.
I don't mind if I do it.
Up. What do you want, that one?
No, relax is fine.
Dexia is which one?
Λίγο.
What do you want?
Σας γυρνάω την πλάτη.
Bell teacher tie.
You want toggle over place as usual?
Great feedback from the audience.
Sorry, just one.
And the hair?
Everybody ready? There we go. More, because I can.
Thank you.
I've got plenty of film.
You good, Peter? Thank you. Thank you so much. Την έχω μια δώρα. Θα τα εξηγήσει και η σπίτι μου.
Before everyone goes, there's just a few little housekeeping things I'm required to pass on, important information. Just a reminder that we have the tribute to Mikis Theodorakis concert by Dimitris Vasis at the Melbourne Recital Centre on the 6th of May. Tickets are selling fast, but please don't miss out. Also, this Thursday's Greek History and Culture Seminar will be given by Professor Tom Papadimitriou. His topic will be the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople and the Ottomans. So the seminar will be an on-live event. And finally, please visit our bookshop at the end, at the back of the centre, the room. Thank you everybody for coming. It's been wonderful to see so many people come out, and I thank the director from the bottom of my heart for such an enlightening talk, and we hope you have many, many, many more successes.